Thank you guys all so much for joining us today for our facilities management webinar. I'm sure you are all super, super excited, as we are so excited to have you here as well. To kick things off, I just want to introduce our lovely facilitator and our experts here today, Neo. Neo, if you could please introduce yourself to everybody, and we'll then dive straight into the questions.
Perfect. Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Neo Matheba. I'm a facilities management professional with about 15 years worth of work experience. My two highest qualifications, I have a master's, an MBA, and an MSc in the built environment, specializing in facilities management. I'm also a doctoral student. Doing my PhD in building with the University of the Witwatersrand, with my key research areas being facilities management competencies and ESG. But I'm also a facilitator and assessor on the PropAcademy program. And yeah, I would like to take you guys through some of the great work we're doing. And we are also open to take any questions from you guys. Thank you, Charlotte.
Amazing, Neo. Thank you so much. Oh, and on that, guys, please don't forget, if you've got any questions, please pop them to us in the chat. We will be addressing them at the end of our session, but throughout, we'll just have a check-see at them. So, Neo, that is absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for your introduction. 15 years is an incredible amount of time. I guess then you can give us some good clarity on some role clarification. Can you outline for us the primary responsibilities for a facilities manager?
Perfect. Yeah, and 15 years goes by very quickly. So trust me, by the time you blink, it's already 15, 20 years in the industry.
I can only
I
imagine.
think let's first start off with the definition of what facilities management is. And if you look at all the big FM associations, yeah, if you look at all the FM associations globally, whether that's IFMA, the RICS, SAFMA, and I think in the UK, there's predominantly the IWFM. They all talk to four key areas. They talk about connecting and integrating people, place, process, and technology. And that's at the backbone of what facilities management is. It's really looking at the people side of things and the places that people use to make them as comfortable as possible, but also as efficient as possible. And also the different processes that we look at. I mean, the different competencies that facilities managers are required to do is quite extensive. And obviously, with today's world, technology cannot be excluded. There's a particular quote I like from, arguably, in my opinion, one of the best FM books by Best, Langston, and DeVellis. Um, the book is called The Workplace Strategies in FM. Let me just read out this particular portion of the book, which I think talks to what facilities management is. The range and skills, the range of skills and knowledge required by facilities management, if they are to be successfully carried out, is quite alarming, as it includes anything and everything from computer networking, mechanical engineering, to human resource management theory, occupational health and safety legislation, contract negotiation, future financial planning, subcontract administration, construction management. The list is endless. They go further to say the perfect facility manager may be someone who is a service engineer with majors in project management and law, with great charisma and interpersonal skills, coupled with certificates in accountancy, real estate, and an MBA, and not to mention a keen interest in protecting the environment. So we are everything to everyone, and that's what we basically do. We try and keep everything together. And unfortunately, it's a big, extensive list. And the great part of the PropAcademy program is we actually touch on all those items to a large degree. And the idea is to really make our learners understand how all of these parts work together in really shaping how our workplaces perform, but also, most importantly, how the strategic objectives of the organizations you work for mold your FM strategy, and how then we execute that to ensure basically an organization that thrives and meets its targets.
Yeah, I think if we just walk into sort of a shopping mall, as just a visitor going to the shops, you don't actually realize how much goes in to managing that building to make sure everything is perfect. And I think it's like it must be quite a heavy weight on that person to make sure that they cover everything properly in order for something not to fall, to drop by the waistline.
Yeah, and if I can just jump in, I mean, I've had a very colorful career thus far, and I've had my fair share of retail. I mean, I still remember my days as a junior facility manager. We would come in an hour before trade opens at the shopping center, and we'd walk the entire floor every day, 7 days a week, just to make sure that any issues are identified and resolved before trade opens. And if that can't happen, it will be done after hours. So shoppers have the best experience. That's the mandate of shopping centers. You want your shoppers to return and spend their money. But no one's going to return in a dark, stuffy shopping center. And shoppers don't expect to find that. They want, the best clean amenities, easy parking, great security. They want to feel as if it's safe for them to spend their money. And that's what shopping is all about. And I mean, retail is a very tough space. And if you look at some of the things happening in the retail space now, in terms of vacancies, uh, you could to some extent look at FM and say, what are those FM managers doing there? Not always the case. Shopper habits change, but it's also important for facilities managers to understand the industry or the discipline they're in. I mean, the industry they're in, and also help assist the organization in making sure that they are competitive, especially in areas like retail.
That's amazing, Neo. Thank you so much. That really gives us a lovely, clear and broad outline of what a facilities manager really does. So I'm really excited for the rest of our questions and to get really more in depth and find out a little bit more about it. But sticking with the role clarification, how would you say that the role of a facilities manager differs from that of a managing agent?
The the so I think when you look at the different delivery models of a facility manager, and I think that's very important. Um, in facilities management, you do get managing agents in the FM space, and those would typically be contracted to the client, um, and they would then manage the FM component for them as a managing agent. So they would typically, the easiest way I could explain it is they are the middleman between the client and the different service providers. They provide a management service. So they will still contract cleaning, they will still contract security and maintenance, and they also provide quality assurance on the work done because obviously the client might not have the resources or competency to look after those day-to-day mundane tasks. Another delivery model is, which I think is also important, is when the client does the facilities management themselves. So this will be in-house as opposed to outsourced. And they would then directly deal with the service providers and sign those contracts directly with the service providers. So that's the biggest distinction. The responsibility then and the risk from a managing agent perspective sits with the FM agency, if I can call them that. They are then the risk of managing the contracts lies with them, with the respective service providers. They bear all the risks as well as the performance of those contracts. But if it's an in-house, then that contracts are directly with the client. Unfortunately, the client is not really it's not good at FM. They might be taken for a ride, and that's why the likes of Brawl, the likes of JHI, the likes of Eris, to that effect, come in as experts in the space of facilities management to assist some of the clients in making sure that they get value for money.
That's so amazing. Well, it's definitely an in-depth topic. So we know that everyone needs a lot of this knowledge in order to do it properly and make sure they're not getting taken for a ride, as you say.
Yeah, and
Now,
just to add, and sorry, just to add,
yes.
and
No,
obviously
don't worry.
we do cover these different aspects of the different delivery models from a facilities management perspective, and the different type of contracts that are covered in FM, in relation to how you then want to deliver your FM services within this particular program. So we do expand extensively on it, and the associated contracts, back-to-back contracts that you would typically have. And I think that's very important, so that so the audience understands that what we're talking about here is not just theory, but it's something that we actually teach in our classes.
Definitely, definitely. Now, Neo, just to touch on this, I think we did touch on this a little bit in question one, but I'm not sure if you have anything more to add. But given the comprehensive responsibilities of a facilities manager, how does a facilities manager significantly impact the operational efficiency and sustainability of a building or a facility?
Yeah, I'll explain slightly. Operational efficiency, in my opinion, basically means value for money in terms of operations. It's making sure we are sweating the asset, as the asset managers would say. And obviously, environmental considerations, it's something that's a hot topic, and a very important topic. And it's something that facilities managers need to really understand and take into consideration when they are executing the strategic FM plans. And like I said, FM is about connecting people, process, and places, and making sure that you provide a very comfortable space for your occupants is extremely important for FM. You want your office space or your retail center or whatever facility you're managing to be something that all occupants think of first when they wake up. I'd rather go into the office than stay at home because I've got all the amenities and creature comforts at the office. And that's what you definitely want as an FM professional. Yes, we do those through the management of various contracts, whether that's soft services or technical services. But at the backbone of FM, the operational efficiencies will ultimately mean or talk to switching your assets and getting value for money, ultimately.
Amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that. Well, from what I understand, that there are many career paths for a facilities manager. Could you perhaps elaborate on the opportunities in the sectors like the commercial real estate or even the healthcare facilities?
Yeah. I'll just talk about myself quickly. I studied construction management, so I wanted to be a construction manager, work on construction sites. And I still recall after graduating, I found myself working for a quantity surveying consultancy firm. So a big deviation from what I initially wanted to do. And then I found myself working for, at the time, Drake & Skull Facilities Management, which was a FM agency. And then I've worked my way up from junior FM manager to specialist and then senior manager. And I've worked in numerous industries. I've worked in the public sector. Currently, I'm working in the public sector as well. I've worked in the private sector. I've worked for banking. I've worked for consultancy firms. I've worked in the telecommunication space. I've worked in the energy space. I've worked in research space. So I want to broaden the answer to not just confine it to your question. Facilities managers are everywhere.
I'm aware.
You might not be called a facility manager. You might be called a facilities officer, an operations manager. It'll differ in terms of where you're working. But as long as there's a facility to be managed, there's definitely a space for you there. And like I've mentioned, you get and specifically in the private sector, you get outsourced FM service providers, Eres, Pro, Service, Bidvest, JHI, who both act as a managing agent or a contractor. And obviously, you will have your in-house FM professionals that work for the organization directly and manage these services either through outsourced or in-house services. And then obviously, you cannot ignore the bigger real estate organizations out there, Redefine, Point, Attack, Resilience, High Prop, that have massive property portfolios that require big FM teams to manage those properties. So and that's obviously in the commercial side of things. Healthcare, obviously, yes. I mean, all those hospitals need someone to manage them. You might get slight variances, and obviously so because um, healthcare is more of a technical, let's call it technical facilities. So you might find one of the requirements that you might have a need for an engineering background. But then in your corporate side of FM, you find that they're very lax in terms of the requirements of that particular FM. You might not need a technical qualification or background. And that's the beauty of FM. There's a
Oh,
place
wow.
for everyone in the facilities management space.
That's absolutely beautiful. Well, we can definitely see that there are plenty of career opportunities for anyone seeking a career in FM. Neo, your CV must be down to the floor. That's so amazing. So if we can just kind of touch on with the advancements with FM, could you kind of give us some examples of common career progression paths for facilities managers?
Yeah, so our program is pitched at an NQF6, and we spend a lot of time on more the strategic side of FM, of how to conceptualize and implement FM strategies, which are then based on your corporate strategy of your organization. How does that translate into facilities management? And then obviously would want to then roll it out. Either way you've structured it. So that's the NQF6 program that we've pitched. But obviously, your day-to-day operations would typically be done by your operational levels, which now are your handyman or your junior FM type of staff. Then you would get a tactical level, which is basically a bridge between your operational and your strategic, and that's where the manager levels start. This is where you're taking the strategy from your executives or your senior manager, and you're saying in the next year this is what we need to do, in the next 3 years this is what you need to do, and then it's your job from a tactical perspective to ensure the operations run smoothly. And then you've got your strategic level, which is more of your C-suite executive level or senior management level, where these strategies are conceptualized and put together for the rest of the team to for the rest of the team to execute. So in principle, those are the three levels, and depending on where you start in your FM career, like I did, I started right at the bottom from an operational perspective, moved my way up into a technical, which is more of a manager level, and I think I'm almost at your senior executive level. Because in my current role, I do draft strategies and we do look at a lot of other key indicators and policies that we put together to inform how, as an FM organization, we also execute our mandate. So yeah, those are the career progressions. You start off as a junior, you would work yourself up, but then again, it also depends on the organization that you're working for. Some organizations have a very flat, let's call it organizational hierarchy or structure. They might not necessarily have a junior, middle manager, and a senior manager position for facilities managers. They might just have a junior and a middle manager reporting directly into a CFO or an executive. So not all organizations you will have an executive level, but I assume it's like that with any profession. It just depends on the industry. But yeah, those are your stepping stones into the higher echelons of facilities management.
Incredible. So even if someone just wants to use this course or facilities management for their own professional growth, would you say that's beneficial? It would help them in just advancing their skills, their day-to-day.
Definitely. We touch a lot on strategy in this program, and also understanding what strategy is and how to view it. So even if you don't apply 100% of what we teach, there are concepts that you can apply on a daily basis. I mean, if you're a homeowner, you would understand that there are costs associated with owning a house. And it's some of the things from a financial management perspective. One of our core subjects is what you should be looking out for when you're managing a facility from a cost perspective. And it's also good to also understand how things work in general. You don't want to be caught napping 9 out of 10. I mean, understanding how facilities work is a general skill I think people should just learn. Part of your further education or development per se. So yeah, I agree 100%.
I also feel like an FM a husband that had an FM NQF level 6 would be great around the house. Can you imagine how organized it would be? Nothing would break. Actually, when you get your wedding
It does
present, you
break.
should
It
just
fixes
make
straight
sure,
away.
instead of asking for gifts for your wedding, you should just ask for the NQF level 6 and FM, and then you'll have a happy marriage.
I'm in support. I support fully.
I think that's absolutely amazing. I definitely think that can be used amazingly towards personal growth. And like Courtney said, definitely around the house. So we did touch on this a little bit a few questions ago. But again, I'm not too sure if you have anything further to add, Neo, just on how the responsibilities of the facilities managers differ across the industries. I know you spoke about the hospitality and then your normal corporates.
Look, yeah.
You proceed. That's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so like I said, it depends on the industry. Technical industries would typically want more of a technically orientated FM manager. So you need to understand all your electrical compliance, mechanical, and so forth. Hospitals, great example. But if you are in more the corporate business type of organizations in the middle of Sandton or Umhlanga, you might not necessarily need the technical skills, but obviously the softer skills might be required. But at the core, you'll still need financial literacy to a large extent, how to manage budgets. You still need the soft skills around managing people. So those will always be core to what an FM does. How do you engage? How do you deliver messaging? How do you manage projects? Regardless of what industry you work in, those will always be core. But then depending on whether it's education institution, hospitality, medical aid, I mean medical profession, you will then have to there'll be a slight incline towards a certain type of technical skill that you would need to also possess. Yeah.
Yes.
Let me leave it
So
at
would you
that.
say then it really just falls into that facilities manager management, and this is also what Vusi has asked on the chat, is more geared towards your commercial, industrial, retail, and then with your residential complexes, simplexes, duplexes, you're more looking at the managing agents. Would that be correct to say?
Maybe let me just quickly look at Vusi's question. He says, so FM is primarily geared for commercial business properties. Is that correct? How are resident properties catered for with FM for estates or commercial? So no, Vusi. So FM is across the board. It's not necessarily for commercial business. It does cater for everyone, specifically our program, and I think that's very important. Let me just touch on our program. Our program does touch on all your technical and soft skills required to manage facilities. We are not going to teach you how to change a light bulb or what a three-phase electrical circuit is. Our program is not pitched at that, let's call it a technical level. That's why you'll have your NQF levels in electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. Ours is a management discipline and not necessarily a technical discipline. So we teach management and leadership orientated competencies. How do you manage people? How do you manage portfolios? How do you manage projects? How do you then approach certain situations from a conflict management or a contract management perspective? How do you draft and manage SLAs? And these are regardless of what type of properties you're looking for. I mean, even in the estate, you will have to deal with issues around body corporates and how do you then manage the common areas. And you manage those through service level agreements. Um, you would hire most likely contractors to come on site. You would then have to manage their performance. And in the event they do not perform to a set standard, what punitive measures do you have in place to say I'm clawing back some money or I'm penalizing you for whatever the case is. So it's not oriented toward commercial or business. It's across the board. The skills we teach can be applied in any industry. And again, it's more of a managerial, targeted, strategic, targeted program. So we will not teach you the different components of a lift, as an example, but we'll teach you how to look at the maintenance of a lift, schedule it correctly so that you comply with all legislative requirements and make sure that the lift remains safe. You don't have to change or change a light bulb, but it's important for you to understand how to schedule it in your plan, because ultimately that will impact your financial your finances and ultimately how the business performs. I'm not sure if I answered Vusi, if he's got maybe a
That was
follow-up question.
perfect. Thank you so much, Nia. So basically it gives you the skills to know when something needs to be changed and how to go about doing so. So
Yeah,
that's absolutely incredible. Yes.
if I may, I see Vusi's got a follow-up question. Vui, sorry. Keep saying Vusi. Oh yeah, this is Vui now. Can I manage a complex of residential properties with this qualification? From an FM perspective, yes. If you are looking at managing the performance of contractors in that complex, definitely yes. But this is not a property management qualification. Um, Even though we do touch on property management in one of our modules. So we touch on revenue and the different, let's call them finance calculations around discounting, budgeting, and forecasting. We do cover those, income expenses and so forth. But important, this is not a property management targeted program. But obviously at PropAcademy, we do offer, correct me if I'm wrong, something specific to property management. But definitely, yes, from a facilities management perspective, you can definitely manage multiple complexes with what we teach on this program.
Oh, that's so wonderful to hear, Neo. Thank you. So we have touched on a little bit of what is covered in our courses with regards to how to manage your facility. Are you by any chance able to give us just kind of a brief overview of the structure of PropAcademy's facilities management course?
Yes,
Just how the assessments are or anything like that.
perfect. So like I said, the program is pitched at an NQF6 level. It's got a total of 262 credits.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, the general rule is for every credit you need on average 10 hours to master a particular subject. So in short, you need 2,620 hours to complete this program. And that's why we recommend 2 years. But that's the average. I mean, you do get learners who can do it quite quickly, especially if you're already in the facilities management space or have access to FM related information. And the program is split across 7 learner units. And within each 7 learner unit, you'll have what we call a knowledge module. Now, the knowledge module is basically the theoretical background on that particular topic. And then you will then get what we refer to as practical modules. And your practical modules, in our case, is you then, in your own words, explaining some of the knowledge that you would have gained. So, for instance, we will teach you about the different phases of project management. And in the practical module, we'll say, give us an example of a project you have worked on or you would want to work on where you would apply some of the, or how you would apply or look at the different phases of project management. And then you will have your workplace evidence module, which is where the tar hits the road. And this is where we want to see practical examples, workplace examples where we've actually done some of these activities. Again, example would be in project management. we would then expect you to, for instance, give us a project charter, a project plan, some of the tools that you would have used to monitor performance on the project. And these are real life projects that you would then need your supervisor to sign off that you have indeed done those. Um, Once you complete all 7 learner units, from the PropAcademy side, that's what we would refer to as the formative assessment. You would be assessed on your submissions and found competent or not competent. You are given a chance. I think you're given three chances to redo the work. And then once you complete all 7 formative assessments, you would then be registered with SAFMA, the South African Facilities Management Association, which is the external service provider appointed by the QTCO to then test what we have taught you in principle and make sure that you are found competent. The SAFMA exam is done over 2 days. The last one was done in December here in Johannesburg, and it will be over 2 days. And then once you complete your SAFMA exam and you pass the exam, then you would get your NQF7 qualification. But don't worry, guys. Once you join, we literally hold you by the hand. It's a lot of work. I must be honest, but extremely beneficial. We provide latest information, latest tools. That's how our program is orientated. We provide a lot of tools, a lot of handbooks, so that you are work ready when the time comes. So yeah, that's basically the overview of how the program is structured.
Oh wow. So 2-year qualification followed by a 2-day exam sounds very intense, but Neo, I'm sure with you guiding them through the entire course, they've got absolutely nothing to worry about. So how would you say that our course then prepares the candidate for real world challenges?
Yeah, like I said, we provide a lot of information on the different topics. We provide a lot of articles and we try and get the latest 2024, 2023 articles on particular topics, which really give learners a good understanding of not only the theory around particular concepts, but also how they are applied in the real world. We also provide a lot of tools. So when we're talking about budgeting, we're not going to ask you to do a budget without giving you an example of how a budget looks. We're not going to ask you to do a strategy if you don't know what is required within a strategy and how it should look like. So we provide all these tools, all this information, so that it makes it a lot easier for you to implement. And the nice thing is, because of the workplace evidence module, you are forced to go into your work and apply some of these principles. And it's important to also state we're not looking for the perfect project execution. Even if a project doesn't go well, it's important that you at least identify some of the shortcomings, and that's what we mark you on. We don't mark you on a perfect submission because the book says this is what it must contain. If it doesn't contain that, it's important that you highlighted that we couldn't do X, Y, and Z because of these issues, and it proves to us that you actually understand the concept that we're trying to teach, and that's what we are trying to get to.
That's actually an awesome point, because if I was the learner as well, I'd be thinking, how good is my building running, if I'm doing this example. But that's good that you can actually identify where the shortcomings are so that you know how to fix them. So that's excellent. Thanks, Neo.
Lovely, Neo. Thank you. So we did discuss how facilities managers are everywhere. I mean, every building needs a facilities manager. Could you maybe identify for us some unique benefits that this course would offer apart from other training programs?
Yeah. I think the most important, it's a self-paced program. So you decide when you submit. Look, there's a contract that we signed right at the beginning where you commit to submission dates, right? So that's very important. And we keep you to those dates. If it does happen that you can't meet a date because of life happens, we are able to change it, but there is a commitment on your end in terms of when you're going to submit. But we also guide you in terms of how long more or less you should take to submit certain modules. So you're not just given the material and we say bye bye. We sit down with you and say module one typically takes 2 months. So put these days like this and like that. That's the first part. Number two, we are always available. I mean, between the three of us, we're constantly getting emails and calls from our learners, and we're always engaging. We're not perfect. I mean, sometimes we don't have the answer at that point, but we definitely get back to you and make your life easier as the learner to get on with what you need to do. Um, we provide, like I said, we provide a lot of templates and procedures on some of the things we teach. So it's not just theory, but we give you the templates that you can actually apply in the real world. And it talks to your previous question. You are work ready when you complete the project. I mean the program. You've got all the tools, all the templates that you need to actually do the work. So where I'm sitting, I always say to the learners, you've got no excuse not to get promoted because you can give them some fancy things that we've taught you in class to wow your managers. So the onus is on you to just get those trump cards out every time they ask you to do an assignment, especially with the report writing. I think, and maybe that's my challenge. Being a doctoral student, I'm very specific in how you produce your reports, because you're not
Okay.
just gonna type for the sake of typing and expect me to mark you nicely on that. I expect a certain quality from my learners, and they would know. I've returned a couple of their submissions without even reading it because I was not happy with the quality of their work. And again, we are research based program, so we teach you the latest and the greatest things that are happening. We touch on those, and we give you a lot of articles. I believe journal articles are really a good way to really understand what's happening on the ground. So when we talk about risk management or we're talking about PCPs, project management, energy efficiency, we provide a lot of articles that talk to that. So it gives the learners a very good understanding of what's happening out there in the real world.
That's so amazing. So no one actually can leave this course saying they have no idea what's going on
It's
or where to
impossible.
go from here.
It's
Impossible.
impossible. It's
That's
impossible.
lovely to hear. Okay. If we can just touch a little bit on the skills development side, what would you say are the critical skills that this course focuses on developing?
Yeah. Um, there's a big emphasis on managing self, managing others, and managing service providers and contractors. Like I said, it's a management focused, strategically focused program. So that's very important, and it comes out in the program right at the beginning. There's a big focus on planning and managing service providers and any type of support service, and also business processes. But also, a very important element that we teach is the ability to analyze business requirements. Because at the end of the day, facility management is there to support the core business, if it's not the core business. And you
Okay.
can't do that if you cannot analyze what your business does. And how do you then fit facilities management to ensure that the business thrives? That's also at the core of our of this particular program. How do we bring that out onto a piece of paper that gets approved at board level or senior management level? And then how do we do then the operational plans to make sure that it really is implemented and also measurable? We can write whatever you want to write. If you don't know how to measure it, you're as good as dead. And that's one of the other things we really focus on. How do you measure impact with some of these programs that you'd want to initiate?
Oh, definitely. Neo, thank you so much. Well, you've definitely given us a clear understanding on why those skills are so essential for a facilities manager. I just have one more question before we jump into the Q&As, where we're just going to address everyone's questions in the chat. Ideal candidates. Who would you say would be an ideal candidate for this course? What background or prior knowledge should they have that would just absolutely maximize their learning and career outcomes?
The most important for me is an ability to learn something new. Facilities is such a broad, it's so broad that we literally almost try and cover a lot of concepts. Some will be definitely new to some of the learners. Um, so you need to have a teachable spirit, so to speak. Um, you also need to be able to plan your time. Like we mentioned, 2,600 hours over the 2 years that you need to plan and make time for within your busy schedule. Because we do know 99% of the people who do this program, specifically with us, are working people with
And are
families.
busy all the time.
Always be. Facilities managers are busy, they're on call 24/7. So unfortunately, it just comes with the territory. But it's important that you are able to manage your time and make time for the hour a day or 30 minutes a day that you would want to spend on the program. Doing things last minute doesn't work, colleagues. You
I
would
think definitely not for such an in-depth field. You
no,
definitely
it
can't
won't
leave things
work.
to the last minute.
No, it won't work. And I think another important point is you would need to have access. You need to be in the industry or have access to people in the FM industry. Because it's so FM focused at some points that you would be completely lost
You kind of need
if you
other
don't
people to
meet.
bounce off of to get some
Correct,
ideas, run some ideas
correct,
past them.
correct. So it almost forces you to
Okay.
engage with your own organization and some of your colleagues. I've had learners who were, for instance, trying to put together a service level agreement, and they went to their managers and asked for assistance. And to this day, they're still waiting. And I said to them, "Don't worry. Chances are they don't know how to put it together. So you also
Be
so you're
waiting a
also
long
asking,
time.
yeah, you're asking for too much. But that's the thing. You're going to encounter areas where it's quite new to you, so you need to be willing to learn. And being in the FM space also helps. If your line manager can't help you, hopefully there's another colleague who's willing to jump in and just guide you on what you need to do. And those are the learners that generally do well. Where they've got a very
Good.
supportive manager
Supportive
or
team
a
on their
team,
side.
yeah, because you learn from each other. They are learning something new, and you are also learning something new. So, yeah, that's what I think the ideal candidate is. Someone who's in FM or has access to FM. You could either be right at the bottom, a beginner, entry level administrator in an FM organization. This is still perfect for you. You can be at a manager or an executive level, trying to understand some of the other key concepts within FM, still applicable to you. So where you come in from, your hierarchy or your position level doesn't really matter. It will still work perfectly for you. But being in the space is also very important. Being able to manage your time is extremely important, and having a teachable spirit uh, is also equally important.
Amazing. Neo, thank you so much. I would like to just take these last 10 minutes or so just to jump into the questions on the chat, just so
Yes,
we don't
please.
miss anybody. Everyone, sorry, I'm not sure if I mentioned in the beginning, there will be a recording of this webinar that we will send out to everyone who is registered. So please keep an eye out for that. But thank you so much. We're just going to go through some of the questions on the side. I believe this is the first one. I'm not too sure if this is a repeat. It's from Vusi as well. So it says, you mentioned strategy. Are energy efficiencies included in the program? Example, renewable and environment, etc. Also, the laws governing these renewables.
So we do cover sustainability as a construct, and within sustainability, you will have topics around renewable energy and the like. And yes, we do share some of the legislation around renewable energies. In particular, I'm just trying to remember the particular code that was gazetted around energy efficiency. But we do cover those topics. I just can't remember off the top of my head. And things like you're building energy certificates. Yeah, I think it's building energy certificates. I can't remember the exact term. So we do cover even your green star rated systems, your BRIM and the like. We do cover from a sustainability perspective. We do cover that. Obviously, we're not going to go into the mechanics in much detail, but it's very important that you get a very good understanding and overview of how these legislative requirements impact you. So that's definitely covered. And just to add on, it's not the only legislative requirements that we cover. We also cover the Occupational Health and Safety Act, National Building Regulations Act, and some of the codes that find their way into facilities management, and how you should be on the lookout, especially from a risk management perspective, because you don't want your buildings as a facility manager to be closed down, whether it's for non-compliance related issues. So we do cover those definitely.
Wonderful, Neo. Thank you so much. Then we have got a message or a question from Kim. Kim says, firstly, thank you to everyone for this extremely informative webinar. Thank you so much, Kim, for joining us. Neo, just a question in job ads. They are requiring FM managers with engineering skills, maintenance skills, electrical qualifications, etc., that can physically do work on site. This has now created a new dynamic to the job scope. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think this goes back to one of the discussions we had around the industries that are specifically looking for these type of facility managers. If I see this, then it's a very engineering related industry where the FM is required. I mean, if you're managing a processing plant as a facility manager, very important to understand the electrical and mechanical components. So an electrical and mechanical engineer might actually be required for that type of facility. But if you're managing an office block, generally they don't look for an engineering background. And then again, it depends on at what level, operational, tactical, or strategic, that vacancy or that position is. At an operational level, if they want someone who can physically do the work, I mean, you are everything in one. You're the handyman, you're the electrician, you're the supervisor, the manager. I mean, but then again, organizations will always craft a job spec based on what they need. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I can assure you, there's a plenty of other FM related vacancies that don't look at the technical aspect. It just boils down to what industry you're moving into. I'm fortunate. I studied construction management, and I have worked in spaces where they would have said, no, you're not technically qualified. You're not an engineer. But when you look at the work they're doing, it's more on program management, which I'm quite comfortable with. Even though I was looking at chillers, lifts and boilers and the like, which was still fine. It was still within my neck of the woods because I don't have to open up the DB board and change wires. There's someone else who's going to do that. But it's very important for me to understand what is wrong with that board. And I must be able to plan accordingly in terms of downtime if needs be, and communicate that effectively. So I hope I answered your question, but I'm happy to elaborate if you need more answers, Kim.
I think that was wonderful, Neo. I will let you know if another question does pop up. Thank you. We have got one from Almarie. She wasn't able to tap it in the chats, but she says, I would like to know the difference between FM and an ops manager.
Almarie, which Almarie is this? Is it our Almarie?
Jansen van Rensburg,
oh, yes. I know Almarie. Yeah, it's just naming conventions for me. So I once worked for JHI Property, and we were referred to as operations managers. And we were given a portfolio of properties. At that time, I think I was managing 30, 40 properties across South Africa. and it's typically what a facility manager does. I was managing the upkeep of those properties, take on inspections, assisting with renovations. So that's more on the maintenance side of FM. And it just boils down to naming conventions. And also the naming conventions to some extent should be influenced by what the person does on a day to day. At another organization I worked for, I was responsible for all the soft services, including travel, whether it's car hire, flights, hotel accommodation, security, cleaning, and there I was referred to as a facilities officer. But it's the same thing. And then at some point I worked as a junior facility manager and do exactly the same things. So it's just a naming
It's just
convention.
title changes,
Yeah,
whichever
it's
one the
just
company prefers.
correct, because I mean, to the company's defense, sometimes it has to align with how the
Yes.
positions within the organizations
Yes,
are also
yes.
structured. I mean, you can't be called a facilities officer and you don't have any other type of officer within the organization at the junior level. So yeah, it's a simple answer, but maybe if she was on the line, she could expand a bit. But for me, same thing. Okay.
So I think it's
Amazing.
important to make sure you always read the job spec.
Yeah.
Because the title can be very misleading.
Correct.
I've also just popped some of the descriptions of the knowledge, practical, and work experience modules onto the group, so that anybody who has extra questions, I've just taken it from the orientation guide.
Yes.
And I hope that helps. We've supplied you guys with links as well. I was just interrupting Charlotte there. Carry on, Charlotte.
Perfect. No, you are more than welcome. Well, thank you so much for popping that onto the chat course. I'm sure everyone will find that extremely valuable. But I think that is then the end of our questions. Neo, Kim did end up responding and she said, thank you 100%. So you were perfect with your answer.
Perfect.
Sorry, I think there's one more coming in here from Anne-Marie. Listening to this webinar and my experience, one needs to be in the facilities management space. The practical and workplace experience worksheets you would not be able to complete.
That's correct.
Sorry.
Hey, Neo?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you to all our listeners. We loved having you with us, and we really did maintain the audience. So thanks, Neo. You are, as usual, amazing at explaining our course, the NQF Level 6 in Facilities Management. And, you know, if you think of it, it's not just one thing. You've now just opened everybody's eyes to how much it can cover. So I really appreciate that. Thank you for your time. And thank you to our audience. As Charlotte said, there will be a recording. You will also be emailed the recording. It will be on our website under our podcast page. So don't worry about it. Once it's ready, we'll notify you. And well done to Charlotte for hosting. She did an amazing job. Thank you, Charlotte. You're amazing.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay. All right.
That was lovely. Thank you all so much for joining.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Neo.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.